Men holder det? Der er jo skyer derude jo. Ja, den er lige bag. Det er rigtigt. Det er rigtigt.
A ploughed field with a view of the sea. It's right after daybreak on a cold spring morning. There's a rosy glow where the sky meets the sea, but dark clouds are gathering on the horizon. It's the 20th of March 2019, the spring equinox.
Fantastisk, men det er en kold morgen, hvis man havde boet her. Dengang det jeg skulle til at feste var i gang med festen.
A small group of people have gathered here, waiting for the sun to rise.
Hvad med de skyer der? Det er ikke helt godt.
This is archaeologist Finn Ole Nielsen. The gathering was his idea, and now he's afraid that the clouds might obscure the sun.
Vi bliver jo advaret af de lokale.
He wants to see what happens when the sun rises on this special morning.
Men
This early morning gathering takes place on the northeast corner of Bornholm. Bornholm is a small island in the middle of the Baltic Sea, with the rest of Denmark to the west, Sweden to the north, Lithuania and Latvia to the east, Poland and northern Germany to the south.
Så, nu har vi fænomenet.
The clouds seem to be dispersing. You're listening to the second episode of The Road to Archaeotourism, a podcast series about the complementary possibilities of tourism and archaeology in the Baltic region. We focus on the activities of ArchaeoBelt, an investigative EU project started up to create a blueprint for archaeotourism in the South Baltic. The project's a collaboration involving cultural institutions in 3 countries. Gdansk University is project leader, and the partners are the Museum of Gdansk, Bornholm Museum, the University of Aarhus and Lund University. The project was carried out at 5 archaeological sites from 2019 to 21. 2 of them are on the Danish island Bornholm, 2 are in Poland, and 1 is in southern Sweden. The first episode outlined the general ideas behind the project, and this episode takes you to Sorte Muld on Bornholm. As long as locals can remember, this place has been called Sorte Muld, which means black soil, a mysterious name with a logical explanation. Centuries of dense human presence saturated the earth here with natural waste material, making it black and fertile. Sorte Muld, around the year 8500. To the people living here then, the spring equinox marked the beginning of a new year. It was a holy day and a day of festivities. A day that was celebrated in the magnificent temple that once stood here. Chief archaeologist Finn Ole Nielsen has a theory. He believes the temple entrance faced due east, and according to his calculations, the rising sun on this day would shine through the entrance of the temple. This morning, he's here to test the theory.
Det er rigtig godt.
Ja, det er det da.
Det er da fuldstændig, som vi håbede på.
Ja.
Hold da. Nu kommer den. Ja.
Excellent, he said. The clouds are gone. Exactly what we'd hoped for.
Det er jo fornemt.
If the entrance to the temple was here, the sun would have shone through the opening. The angle is exactly right. Finn Ole Nielsen is excited and looking forward to a summer of archaeological excavations open to the public. It'll be the first extensive excavation of Sorte Muld since the 1980s. The black soil is about to reveal some of its secrets. It's summer, early June. The Sorte Muld excavation has begun, and today it will be open to the public.
It's a beautiful day. That's something I'm glad, because the other day
it was foggy.
Nicholas Carretta, archaeologist at Bornholm's museum, is chatting with an American PhD student, one of many contributing to the excavation.
Now it gives you a much better idea. Like, you can actually picture what people may have seen from this settlement and why they put the settlement here.
Yeah. And you can see they have a nice overview. And then you have the burial mound in there. Mm-hmm. And the other one's very visible right on the other side. So it gives you a nice impression of how they might have been looking by the time.
You know, they said there was a road, or there are many roads leading here, but like which?
Yeah, but there was one that might have been going that way.
The initiators of the Archaeobelt project see a future where archaeology and tourism are intertwined. The project is testing new methods and investigating possibilities in the field. As a part of this, test site excavations like this one in Sorte Muld are open to the public. Visitors are invited into an active working site where they can experience an archaeological process firsthand. There are lots of visitors at Sorte Muld today, on this first open excavation day. The sun is shining and the site is busy. 4 or 5 archaeology students from the University of Aarhus are working in a shallow rectangular pit, or profile, as archaeologists say. Their assignment is to excavate the temple. Their professor, archaeologist Jens Andresen, is not far away. Andresen is boring a test hole to determine the depth of the cultural layer. The cultural layer is the layer containing traces or remains of human activity.
Vi er over 70 centimeter nede. Så det er 1 meter.
He's surprised. 1 meter, he says. He's not sure whether the team will be able to work through this layer and achieve its goal of unearthing the temple in 1 season. A PhD student is showing one of the younger students how to use the highly precise GPS receiver.
Okay, it's active.
Yes, and then we pick a point on. Right now it says point
24.
24.
Yeah.
The mission is to localize the palisade enclosing the temple.
See, right now it's connected to the GS sensor. That's the GPS up here. So now you see it has found 16 of these and 9 of these.
About 10 meters from the profile is a row of 10 wheelbarrows filled with soil and water, forming a soup of sludge. Nicholas Carretta is stirring the muddy soup with a shovel. He's preparing to water sieve the soil.
You have a lot of chunks of mud. So in order to break it and make it a lot easier to pass through the sieve, we need to get it wet. So that's why we put them in there. And we stand them there in line, waiting to be sieved, and that is the process. Because it has a lot of clay, so we need to break the clay.
A significant part of this particular excavation is the water sieving of all the soil. It's a huge, very messy undertaking. For many centuries, ploughs have cut and turned this cultural layer and thus dispersed the archaeologically readable material. Some of the objects they're looking for are so minute that the only way to retrieve them is to water sieve. The sludge in the wheelbarrow is emptied onto a mesh wire screen where a team of local volunteers proceed to dissolve the mud with water, leaving a pile of pebbles and particles, some of them of archaeological interest. bits of bone from domestic animals, fragments of pottery, glass pearls, and sometimes tiny gold foil figures. These little figures have only been found in a few archaeological sites. They are called guldgubber in the Scandinavian languages. The word guldgubber means something like golden guys. Most of them are paper thin. They're usually between 1 and 2 centimeters long, depicting a figure, in most cases human. Most of the images have been pressed into the foil with a stamp that could be used again and again, but some have been cut directly from the foil and are individually unique. What was the purpose of these little foil figures in the Iron Age? Until recently, this was a mystery, and to tell the truth, it still is. Archaeologists are still speculating. There's much we don't know, but one thing is for certain. For a long time, only a few of these gold foil figures have been found in Scandinavia. But with Sorte Muld, that all changed.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Det er faktisk en god guldgubber.
A large group of local volunteers are doing menial chores at the excavation site. Today they're water sieving while singing traditional Bornholm folk songs, where they incorporate the word guldgubber into the lyrics. Leading the volunteer division is Klaus Thorsen. The water for the sieving is pumped up from a bog close by. Michael S. Thorsen starts up the pump. He's in charge of the technical setup and excavation infrastructure on behalf of Bornholm's museum, and he explains how the water is pumped from the bog to a large water tank and then to the tables where the material is sifted. When the mud is washed away, a mix of pebbles and bones and small indeterminate particles are left. This material is scanned for interesting objects by the next group of volunteers standing at a large sorting table. They meticulously pick out objects that might be interesting to the archaeologists. These are put into little plastic bags with a number that indicates exactly where and when they were found. The finds are brought to a container a few meters away where they're registered and photographed. Inside the container, at the end of this efficient, hard-working chain of archaeologists, students and volunteers, a woman is studying one of these little plastic bags together with René Larsen from Bornholm's museum to make sure that everything is documented properly.
Du har styr på dem der.
Nu har jeg fotograferet det.
Er det hele meget fotograferet? Nu skal jeg
til det. Nu skal det redigeres, har jeg fået at vide.
Her name is Margrethe Watt, and she's an archaeologist with a long history at Sorte Muld. And although she's retired now, she's still deeply involved in this unique place. People have lived in the area of Sorte Muld since the Stone Age, and the site is almost encircled by Bronze Age burial mounds. The population began to grow in the pre-Roman Iron Age, in the centuries leading up to the year 0, peaking in the 4th to 7th centuries AD. After that, the settlement rapidly declined and was soon completely forgotten. A minor excavation in 1869 and another in the 1950s did not reveal the scale or scope of Sorte Muld. But when amateur archaeologist Gert Müller-Larsen stopped his moped by the side of the road in the spring of 1985 and walked out onto the Black Field to find the first of many more guldgubber to come, Sorte Muld was catapulted to archaeological fame. This is where Margrethe Watt comes in. Following Geert's discovery, local amateur archaeologists had begun searching the Sorte Muld area, finding many guldgubber. The Bornholm's museum archaeologists were worried that things might get out of hand.
Therefore, we had to do something fairly quickly and started in 1986 on a major scale with water sieving and a number of students. And it went on from there for 2 years, 6 months altogether.
Archaeologist Ulla Lund Hansen vividly recalls the excavations in 1986 and 87.
It was very exciting, but it was also very bad weather. Most of the work went out in these wet conditions, and it was a hard job, but it was very exciting. Suddenly, getting several hundreds of these guldgubber, which we earlier only had some very few.
Like Margrethe Watt, Ulla Lund Hansen is retired and works on the excavation as a volunteer.
We water sieved 600 square meters of topsoil, which is about the same as a villa garden, a sort of normal garden, which is quite a lot of work. It's about 10,000 wheelbarrows.
In 1986, Watt's team began water sieving the topsoil, and one by one, the gold foil figures emerged. And there were many of them. They realized they'd only scratched the surface. The gold foil figures are much too thin and frail to have any practical purpose over any prolonged period of time. And they're too small to be ornaments. So what were they used for?
It's much debated, but my own theory and that of most of my colleagues they are sacrifices, offerings to maybe different gods, depending on what the purpose of the offer would be. They would or could very well be used as some of the big like winter solstice or some similar events where the people from the area or from a petty kingdom would come together.
The gold figures were probably momentary offerings, left behind after a ceremony, perhaps plastered onto one of the temple's roof support poles. Offerings that today's archaeologists receive as a gift from the past.
It is like that if you meet gold in the earth, you are never doubting that it is gold. You see it immediately, because gold never changes. It's not like silver, which can be grey and at last it will disappear. But gold never disappears, and you are never. It's always shining when you meet it in the earth.
In that particular season, we found 2,345, I think, actually. And then after that, there was a sort of pause because there was a definite concentration of gold foil figures in a certain area, and we simply got the job of, the main aim was to pick up these figures rather than excavating the whole site. And then after that, we had to leave it because the authorities at the time did not wish this area to be excavated. They'd rather it be left alone, which I agree totally with, and I was quite relieved not to have to continue with it.
Margrethe Watt and her team left. Things returned to normal. The farmer ploughed, planted and harvested the Sorte Muld area as farmers have done for centuries. In the ensuing decades, farm machinery became bigger and more efficient, ploughing deeper and deeper, cutting relentlessly into the past. But Sorte Muld has become a legend. The amateur archaeologists kept roaming the dark fields with their detectors and finding amazing treasures. The importance of this site is uncontested, but the Black Earth still kept most of its secrets until the summer of 2019. This is when the Archaeobult excavations began, carried out by a group of archaeologists and students from Bornholm's museum. Also from the University of Gdansk, Aarhus University, and international students from the US and Greece. Every day, visitors at the site had a fascinating front-row glimpse of the detective-like work of the archaeologists. They watch as little pieces of the puzzle are put together to form a picture and explained by the archaeologists.
Så der har været i hvert fald her, det her, der kan man i hvert fald se, der har i hvert fald lavet noget, hvor at man har i hvert fald noget med brugt med ild. Det er en knogle. Og under den, der fandt vi faktisk noget man mener en jernkniv. Næsten lige under.
There's a part of the jaw from a pig, a shard of pottery, layers of ash, charcoal, and the occasional gold foil figure.
Ja, noget. Han fandt en lille guldgubber i går, eller noget af en kvart guldgubber i går. Tillykke med det.
Yesterday, Klaus found another one.
Det var en god dag. Ja, vi kæmper.
How big are the guldgubber typically? Because we have seen a lot of pictures of them, but we don't know if they're like this or like this.
They're typically this size.
Okay.
And they each weigh like a tenth of a gram.
What happened here? How was life lived? What did people believe in? And why all those gold guys in the middle? Written testimony about the Nordic Iron Age society is in general sparse. There's next to nothing from the Iron Age on Bornholm, and the small world of Sorte Muld went almost totally undocumented. Contemporary written sources do not exist, just a couple of mentions. The only direct documentation of the life lived in Sorte Muld is made up of these tiny gold foil figures, and even they are extremely hard to understand, even for specialized archaeologists.
The images, of course, was quite puzzling because some of them showed, the majority of the figures showed a man in a profile standing with a staff in his hand, and you think, what is that? And people try to say, oh, it's a spear, but it's not a spear; it's a staff. And some of them have particular gestures, which has been a very complicated study because the figures they don't match anything you know already. They're quite difficult to date, but by using a whole lot of different elements, you can actually, iconographic elements, you can actually put them about 550 to about 650, something like that. Possibly some are slightly younger, following immediately after the migration period. And the migration period from 375, we usually say, to about 550, was a period where the whole of Europe was exposed to a, almost like what we see today, a pressure of people coming in from different areas, tribes moving about, power, changes of power. So, and all this is reflected in the gold foils, what happened there.
So, with extensive research, the gold foil figures can shed a light on the society they formed a part of and its Scandinavian context.
Sorte Muld is only part of a major settlement which covers more than 1 square kilometer. And the amateur archaeologists also went with their metal detectors over a whole lot of other sites in the area, and we found out there were X number of smaller settlement sites, and some quite important with spectacular finds, gold and silver. So we got a particularly good picture of where people might have lived at particular periods.
On the very last day of the excavation, in the summer of 2019, an exciting find was made about 100 meters from the main site.
And which corner is that? Southeast, that's northeast.
Yeah.
As mentioned in the first episode of this podcast, PhD students Timus Maddox and Matthias Jensen were digging a hole when they found a road paved with stones.
So at the bottom here you can see it's a bunch of different stones and slabs, carefully laid in some parts. It reminds me of kind of like a cobbled street, cobbled road. Matthias even threw out the term Roman. It kind of looks like it. And it's very interesting to see kind of the effort that may have been put into building this and to also keep it maintained over time. It gives you an idea of the people living here, the complexity of their lives, and the kind of the organization that was being done here. This isn't just some simple village where, one people keeping hold of this. It's quite large, and it would have taken a lot of people over time to continuously maintain this site.
The excavations at Sorte Muld continued in September 2019, but were suspended by the summer of 2020 due to the pandemic. They were resumed in May 21. One of the highlights of 2021 was the unearthing of the first gold foil figures found in the original context on Bornholm, right where they fell, perhaps after an equinox celebration around the year 600. The excavations in Sorte Muld will continue searching for a better understanding of the gold foil figures and the history of the temple and how they relate to the King's Hall and the rest of the main settlement. It's hard to tell what the black soil will bring forth in the years ahead. Tourism will probably be integrated into the process, but one thing is certain. Sorte Muld will continue to fascinate tourists, local residents and archaeologists alike. This was the second episode in The Road to Archaeotourism about the Archaeobelt project. The next episode will focus on another thrilling archaeological site on Bornholm, Smøringe. Just like Sorte Muld, this cult site is rife with gold foil figures, but with radically different motifs, perhaps related to another cult, a cult of women. The Road to Archaeotourism was written and produced by Jon Haller Steffensen and Lars Rømer for the Archaeobelt project. Anja Lillemalum played the cello, and our narrator was Tim Hinman. Thank you for listening. The Archaeobelt project is co-financed by European Development Fund with the Interreg South Baltic Programme 2014 to 2020, and by the programme of the Minister of Science and Higher Education entitled PMW 2014 to 2020/2021/2.